Good afternoon and hello, everyone. It is good to see you again, as it were. And I thought I would drop in and share a video with you today. I'll ask in advance, nice and early, that if my content offers you any inspiration, any desire to dig deeper or for dialogue, um, if it motivates you in any type of way or if it's a blessing to you, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my tiny channel. And without further ado, Shalom Lechem, Anashim Tovim, Uvruchim Habaim, Arutz Hakatan Sheli Hayom. Today I will be sharing with you a little piece of scripture from the book of Bereshit of Genesis chapter 22. It is related to the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and its messianic implications, not only from the words of the Torah itself, but also from the words of one particular gentleman who you see kind of pictured here in his commentary on that particular piece of scripture. In the world of a lot of anti-missionaries or people who seek to hide Yeshua the Messiah from the greater Jewish world or from the greater world of those who do observe Torah in some form or another, the accusation is always leveled that messianic things are seen in Scripture that actually are not. And I want to show you the thought process of a very respected gentleman who thinks quite otherwise about the binding of Isaac, and he makes a reference that I think you'll find very interesting. So, who is the gentleman pictured, you would ask? Well, you know how the internet is. The internet always offers you a picture of who and how they thought someone looked back in the day. There are multiple pictures of, I don't know, like Rabbi Akiva, or pictures of the Rambam, Moshe ben Maimon, and others. Well, the internet in particular offered me this one, and I liked it. I like it for a lot of reasons, but I thought it would also fire some people up. I decided to choose this. Okay, so I want to show you the little piece of scripture that we're going to be looking at here. It's going to be read slowly. It's only a couple of verses because it's dealing in particular with this word, hama'achelet. Hama'achelet. And if you saw my last video, I mentioned that I would be bringing a video forward shortly after in order to cover this word ma'achelet and its messianic implications. So first things first, who is the brother pictured? Well, if I slide this down here, you can see that I screenshot this from my phone, right? You can see the lovely time up there and all my little gadgets and messages that I haven't answered and all those other things. But as you can see that the name here is Sa'adiyah ben Yosef Gaon. Sa'adiyah ben Yosef Gaon. And you can also see that is written in Arabic. You're probably wondering, well, why is it written in Arabic? I'm going to tell you why in just a second. But here you can see Sa'adiyah ibn Yusuf al-Fiyumi. Al-Fiyumi. So, Sa'adiyah ibn son, just like Hebrew ben, Yusuf, or like Yosef in Hebrew, and Al-Fiyumi. He's called Al-Fiyumi or Al-Fiyumi because he was born in Fiyumi in Egypt. In Egypt. And of course, also you can see in Hebrew he's called Rabbi Sa'adiyah ben Yosef Al-Fiyumi Gaon. So what is Gaon? Gaon is a title of honor for a Talmudic student who has become a Gaon, kind of like, a master, as it were, because he is a master of studies of Talmud. Of course, it would, in my opinion, be a lot better had he been a scholar directly of the Torah itself, the Torah, and the Nevi'im and the Kotvim, the instructions, the prophets, and the writings, but he basically dedicated his life to studying others' contemplations of Torah and what it meant. Nonetheless, there's no shade to be thrown on him. But this is why he's called a Gaon, similar to like Vilna HaGaon, if you've heard of Vilna HaGaon. But at any rate, what's in particular is important or special about this brother? Well, it's the fact that he is one of the most respected rabbis from back in the day, and he is the first to write a commentary and translation of the Torah in a Judeo-Arabic. Okay, so he was very, very prominent, and he was a trailblazer in this particular sense. This is why his name is recorded as this way, and he also received the titles that he has. So let's cover the piece that I'm speaking of that can be found that we're covering today. So as you can see here, it says Va'ani. This is from Bereshit, chapter 22. And this is Abraham speaking to the lads that traveled with him and his son Yitzchak. Va'ani ve'hanar nilcha adko. Myself and the lad, speaking of Isaac, nilcha adko. We will continue on to that point. Vanishtahave, and we will worship. Then nashuvu alechem, and we will return to you. So do you see the faith in the things that Abraham is speaking? Va'ani ve'hana'ar, I and the lad, nelcha, we will go adko, up until that point, because remember, they're looking at the place that they're going to, Har Moriah, the mountain of Moriah, from a distance. Ve'nishtahave, and we will worship and prostrate ourselves. Ve'nashuva alechem, nelcha, we will go. Ve'nishtahave, and we will worship. Ve'nashuva, and we will return. That is the faith of Abraham. Because keep in mind, he was promised that a great nation would come from him. Okay? He knows the promise that the Most High has made. Okay? Let's read on just a little bit more, and then we'll get exactly to where we're going. Vayikach Abraham et eitzei ha'olah, and Abraham took the wood for the olah, for the offering, Vayasim al Yitzhak beno, and he placed them on Isaac his son. Vayikach biado, and he took in his hand, speaking of Abraham, et ha'esh, the fire, ve'et ha'ma'achelet, our key word, and the knife, vayelchu shnehem yahdav, and the two of them continued on together. So, Abraham has the wood for the olah, okay, for the sacrifice, which we'll talk about a little bit. And he has the knife for the sacrifice. And he has what he needs to make the fire, and the two of them went ahead. Now, if I move my sheet here up to the point of the moment here, we can see right here that Abraham has already bound Yaakov. He has already bound Yitzhak to the altar over the wood, which is over the fire. And here's the moment of truth in verse 10. Vayishlach Abraham et yado. And Abraham sent forth his hand, Vayikach et hama'achelet, and he took the knife, lishhot et beno, to slaughter his son. To slaughter his son. Okay? What stopped him? What stopped him? Vayikra elav malach Adonai. And he called to him. Who called to him? The angel of the Most High. Min hashamayim, from the heavens. Vayomer, and he said, Avraham, Avraham. Vayomer, and Avraham said, Hineni, Hineni, here I am. Here I am. So first things first, let's look at the word ma'achelet. I'm sure you remember, maybe, ma'achelet. So you have ma'achelet. Ma'achelet, which is a knife. It's a very old, defunct Hebrew word for a knife. Okay, it was not used a whole lot. Okay, but in this case in particular, if I'm not mistaken, only twice in all of Torah is it used. What's the root of that word? Well, it's the aleph, the chaf, and the lamed. The aleph, the chaf, and the lamed. Achal, okay, the Hebrew word which means food or to eat. And if you saw my last video, you know that this word with the root aleph, kaf, and lamed can also mean a vessel. It can be used to mean fully or wholly, as in WHOLLY. It can mean to consummate, to end something in a positive or a negative way. We also get the word chala or kala, which means bride. We get tachlit, which means end. We get klal, klala. We get all of these things, okay? So if you remember, keep that in mind because that's very important, okay? So now, why would the Torah use the word ma'achelet for a knife, carrying the connotation of something that's to be eaten? Well, keep in mind when we talk about ola, I'm going to use the script here because it's a little quicker for me. And ola, ayin vav lamed he, ola, which is the type of sacrifice. And you know the root word of ola means to go up. Aliyah means to go up, all right, spiritually, literally, but more importantly, it means to rise, to come up higher. This is the nature of the olah offering. It's offered up completely. No one eats any of it. It all goes up to the Most High. And if you're familiar with the fashion in which offerings are made, and the olah offering has to have the throat slit, and it has to be quartered and skinned. Keep in mind, Abraham has taken upon himself to obey the voice of the Most High, and he's going to do exactly what he said that he would do. And also have this thought as well, too. How about the book of Hebrews in the Brit Chadashah? Hebrews, right? Chapter 11, verses 17 through 19. Hebrews 11, 17 through 19 lays out the fact that Abraham, according to the writer of the book of Hebrews, offered up Isaac. He did it. Abraham functionally offered up Isaac. Even though in the text we know that the Malach Adonai, Malach Yehovah, calls out to him and tells him not to do so, but according to the writer of Hebrews, he functionally offered him up. So what would we use to even back up that claim? Let's go, when you have a chance, on your time, right? Take a look at the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 28. Yeshua Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach, he says, whatever a man thinks in his heart, if a man has lusted in his heart for a woman, it's as if he is functionally already laid with that woman. He has soiled himself and he has soiled her as well. He who has an ear, let him hear. And how about this? What is Yeshua referencing? Well, very likely Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7, okay, which uses the word sha'ar. Okay, you might be used to it looking like this. Sha'ar. We render it as whatever a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Well, I can tell you with definitely more accuracy, it says whatever a man calculates binafsho, inside of his soul, kenhu, this is what he is, whatever he calculates. So Abraham offered up Ishaq because he had already made up in his mind and in his heart that he was going to be obedient to the Most High. Can you even fathom or imagine a faith that's on that level? Okay, speaking of faith, go back to the words. Nilcha, we will go, and we will worship, then nashuva, and we will return. Okay, we will return. Now, where does Sa'adiyah, okay, Ben Yosef, Alfi Umi Hagaon, how does he come into play in this? Well, again, he was a part of the non-believing world that did not believe in Mashiach, Yeshua. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was born around the 9th century of the Common Era after Yeshua. Okay, but he wrote a commentary, as I mentioned to you, the first commentary and translation of the Torah as a whole in Arabic, in a Judeo-Arabic, okay? Opening a lot of doors for Israelites around the world as a whole to be able to experience Torah, okay? And he wrote a commentary on this. And I want to show you first and foremost that I did get this off of Sefaria. Okay, Sefaria. Okay, right off of my phone here. Once again, you can see all of the messages that I haven't answered and yada, yada, yada. And I got a 99% battery thing here. But here is his commentary on Sefaria. Again, the purpose of this video primarily is to show that Messianic thought with respect of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, Messianic thought is not a brand new thing. It was not a first century thing only. It is not a Christian or a Messianic extrapolation. It is not any type of doctrine. I want to establish to you that there are minds that had Messianic thought, minds from the non-believing Israelite world, and that had the Messianic thought in mind. This is what they pulled from the Torah when they read it. So as you can see here, we pretty much ended where I stopped when I read from my sheet. Vayishlach Abraham et yado vayikach et ha'ma'achelet lishchot et beno. He took the knife to slay his son. And then it goes on and says, Vayikra elav malach Yehovah min hashamayim vayomer. Abraham, vayomer hineni. Okay, he says, don't do anything to the boy. So, here's the commentary from Sa'adiyah Hagaon bin Yosef, Ibn Yosef, bin Yosef. His commentary is called Tafsir Rasag. Tafsir is just an Arabic word that means commentary and or translation. So he calls his commentary section on this Tafsir Rasag. So here's the thought process. See if you pick it up. I'm going to read it to you here. So with respect to the translation, there is a midrash or a mashal, like a parable written in order to translate it. It's a parable written in order to transfer thought. So here's the thought process from Gaon ibn Yusuf. He says, now if and when my descendants will sin and they will experience difficulties, I want you to suppress your feelings when you punish them, remembering that I suppressed my inclination to ask you some embarrassing questions. What is he talking about? Well, first and foremost, when the Most High, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yud He Vav He, asks or tells Avraham to sacrifice your one and your only son, Avraham has in mind that great promises have been made to him about who would come out of his loins. And it had to come through his son, his one and only son, Yehidecha. He says, offer up, your son, Yehidecha, your only son, Asher Ahavta, the one that you love. So this commentator is supposing that Abraham had a lot of questions in his mind. And yeah, I would agree with him. So he terms them as saying that, embarrassing questions like, hey, why would you turn around and kill the person that you promised me offspring and blessings to the world from? So this is what that's about. He goes on and he says, I want you to consider as if Isaac's ashes, follow this, had already been piled up on this altar. Remember, the book of Hebrews said that functionally, in line with Mashiach's words and in line with the words from Proverbs, in his heart he had already made up his mind. He has functionally, he offered up Isaac, literally. He says, I want you to consider as if Isaac's ashes had already been piled up on this altar, as if his blood had been sprinkled on it, and as a result, you will forgive the transgressions of my offspring. Do you catch that? So you have Ibn Yusuf, Ben Yosef Hagaon. He, even though it's a mashal, even though it's a parable, even though it's a midrash being used to translate and make this more palatable, more understandable for the reader, he is, in his mashal, offering up an atoning type of quality. I want you to consider as if Yitzchak's ashes had already been piled up on this altar, as if his blood had been sprinkled, atonement language, on it, and as a result you will forgive the transgressions. Sin, what is sin? Transgression of Torah. You will forgive in the future the transgressions of my offspring. So yes, that's it, and that's all. I wanted this to be simple, and I wanted it to get to the point. And there you have it. Applying messianic overtones, or the notion that the life of a righteous can atone the sins of generations, is not a Christian invention. It is not a messianic invention. Rather, it's rooted in Torah, and even those who were non-believers and did not look to Yeshua as Mashiach could see these things, okay? So, again, I'm hoping that this was of value on some level for you, and that it was a blessing, to you in some form, and that you can use it, yes, to better your walk, to strengthen your arsenal, and to move forward in your walk with Mashiach day by day from glory to glory, that we will be transferred into and conformed rather into his image. Having said thus, I leave you with the Aaronic benediction and wish you well in a great week coming up. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Most High guard over you, and may he keep you. May the Most High cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Most High lift his countenance upon you, his face, his presence upon you, and give you his shalom, because when we have peace, we're not lacking. We are whole. We have all that we need. And when we have him, we're not in need of anything else. I hope to see you guys all again real soon. Take care and be blessed.